Do not any of you feel that way?
It's annoying.
I don't think it's the greatest thing in the world, but it doesn't make me like angry or anything.
And that's part of it too. And if you are, let's say that you are somebody that's like, ooh, I am angry about this. Like, I totally don't want to do this. If you have been working for months and months on a budget, and you're gonna piddle and fight over $30,000, like you could basically cause the government to arrest. Like, you could cause the government to go into some kind of shutdown because you're arguing over $30,000. And so a lot of times it's easier just to compromise, and then people like Nikita are like, ooh, I'm going to jump on this bandwagon, and then other people kind of start doing it too. And it becomes something called log rolling, where I vote for your thing if you agree to vote for my thing, and we're making all these kind of trades. Okay? All right. All right, so we'll go back to here. All right, so we got the whole idea of the appropriations process. Reconciliation just means we're kind of like bringing the ends together, trying to make sure everything's good. October 1st is the magic day. If we make it to October 1st and your appropriations bills have not passed the House and the Senate and gone to the President for signature, then that would be when the government would shut down. If we make it to October, we have never, since this process has been created, we have never made it to that time and had all the bills passed. But the government doesn't always shut down. What you can do is you can pass what's called a continuing resolution. A continuing resolution says we agree for the next month to spend at the same rate that we spent before so that we can get this process worked out. So the government shutdown is not only do we not have the money allocated, but we can't agree on a continuing resolution. Please understand, government shutdown means that anybody that does something non-essential doesn't go to work anymore. So the Smithsonian closes. Okay, I realize that isn't a tragedy to most people. National parks will close. But you guys, that also means that all those people that work for the federal government who could very well be your parents don't go to work. So like some federal courts, like some of them will open, but many of them will close, which will then cause a backlog in the courts.
Post office shut?
Yes, post office. There's I just lost my train of thought. Oh, like people that supervise, they do like the payroll for the military. So then, like, so military is still going to work if you're essential for security, but if you're not essential for security, you're not going to. And then it just causes this whole kind of snowball and problem and stuff. Okay? All right, why do we have this process? We have this process because of this man right here. Not completely, but I like to pick on President Nixon a little bit. But remember earlier I told you that presidents haven't, like, in our history, they didn't always spend money the way the Congress allocated it. President Nixon was pretty notorious for that. And so there was some money that was allocated, I think, for military goods or something. I can't remember what it was. And he just wouldn't do it. It's like, I'm not going to spend that money. And that is called impoundment, when the executive refuses to spend the money that way. So if you think about it, if the police impound your car, they basically take it and don't allow you to use it. So if the president impounds the funds, he refuses to let them be used. So Congress passed this law establishing this whole process to assert their role and to say, we are in charge. And it's been really effective because it has definitely increased, it clarified their role, but then it also like increased basically just their process and diminished the president in a lot of ways.
Sorry, was the thing we were talking about with October, was it the continuing resolution?
If they make it to October 1st and they haven't passed their appropriations bills, then they would have to pass a continuing resolution or the government would shut down. So you don't have to have continuing resolutions, it's just a matter of you didn't get your other job done. So when we look at our money and where we get our money and how we spend our money, one of the things we need to consider is taxes. So this is so blurry, I'm sorry. But right here, this is just like a recent budget, and when you look at where we get our money, about 47% of the national government's money comes from the individual income tax. What is it that authorized the individual income tax? You learned about this in U.S. history. Your teachers will be so proud. Yeah, very good. I'll tell Mr. Singler you got it. Anyway, did you remember?
No. Well, I remember that at 4:15 minutes.
Cool. Okay. So the 16th Amendment. What was the 16th Amendment, like, what time period would you associate that with?
I thought that was at the same time as direct elections and everything.
It is direct yes.
Was it like
That was
when
part
they
of
had the big,
early 1900s.
the
So think like Teddy Roosevelt was president,
All the reforms that you said.
like all those kind of reforms and all that kind of stuff is what we were putting into place.
Progressive era?
The progressive era, very good. So when you think about the income tax, what you need to understand then is we created an income tax that was trying to achieve those same kind of goals. So what were the goals of the progressive era?
Like change everything.
But who were we mostly trying to protect?
Citizens.
Okay, but not like the wealthy people, right? Like everything in our country had kind of favored them. So we were trying to put in like worker protections and protect your like the lower middle class, kind of development of middle class, really. So that's how our income tax works. I feel compelled to, like, I have to show you this just real briefly. So the income tax in our country is what's considered a progressive income tax. So about half of the money we said that our federal government brings in comes from the income tax. So here's how your income tax would work. Let's say that you make about $20,000 a year. Okay?
Guess how much I made right now.
Okay. It's likely, and I'm just like thumb sucking this, okay? So this isn't real, but that you pay zero money into tax, right? So you pay 0%. And let's say that you make like $75,000. Then you might pay, say, I don't know, 15% of your income into tax. And then if you make like $250,000, you might pay 25%. That is a progressive income tax. As your income goes up, the percentage that you pay goes up. What you think? You like that? It's wrong? Why is it wrong, Dolly? Did you say wrong?
She said wow. I thought
Wow.
she said
Why do you think wow? Really, you think wow, or are you just saying that?
No, it's like I never thought of progressive era as like that. I just thought it was like progressing as in like making it more equal, but I never thought about like progressive income tax.
Does this seem like a more equal way to tax people?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody think no?
I know I don't think
Okay, what's wrong with it?
because the more money you make, the more taxes you have to pay. It's not fair to those people that actually made the money themselves.
Okay. And there are plenty of people that think that. There are politicians that say that right now. So one of the political proposals that you'll hear on occasion is, well, let's have what's called a flat tax. And so instead, let's just change this percentage and tax everybody the same percent. So let's go in here and we'll say, let's just tax everybody 15%. So everybody will pay a different dollar amount, but their percentage will be the same. You like that better, Aaliyah? You do? You like that, Emily? Yeah. What do you think, Dolly? Because you like the other one.
I'm sorry, I'm eating right now.
It's okay. What do you think, Cameron?
I don't really like it.
Why?
It's like if you make less money, that means a lot more of your money's gonna have. That means more money of your money's gonna have to go into income tax than it would if you were charged like charged less for your income taxes. Because like if you think about it, like wages for people who make like 250k a year, that's a lot of wages. That's a lot of money for the federal government.
Mhm.
I just think it's more fair that way.
And
Okay.
people who like
They
earn
increase the sorry.
people who like earning $20,000 a year, they're probably not getting by as well. Like they really need each dollar they make to change their life. Whereas if you're making so much money, paying more to give back to the community and save a lot to you is, I guess, something that's reasonable.
Okay.
And of course they probably don't want it, but
Mhm.
sorry.
If they increase minimum wage, though, it could support people making more.
Say it again.
If they increase minimum wage, so people are making more the first place, they'll have to stop raising.
Okay, so we'd have to bring that up in order for that to happen. Okay. There is one other kind of tax. So if you look back here at this chart, so income taxes are progressive. Payroll taxes mean Social Security taxes, which I'm going to get to and talk about like later. Corporate income taxes are also progressive. Excise taxes. Excise taxes are taxes like on cigarettes or gasoline. They're built into the per unit cost. Um, it's kind of like a sales tax. It like functions a little bit differently. So, okay, let's say that so Shakiri and I are at the mall and we're walking around and we both see a pair of boots that we want to buy. And the boots are $100. We'll have to pay sales tax, right? So, we'll each pay $8.25 sales tax. But then you got to stop and think, well, whose income is affected more? So, I'm a poor teacher. So, you think about my salary, and she happens to be a lottery winner. Who is going to have to pay a higher percentage of their income into tax? Teachers. So, anytime you tax the value of an item, it ends up being regressive. So at the national level, we don't have a lot of regressive taxes, but like in Texas, most of our taxes are regressive because we don't have an income tax in Texas. And and you could have a flat income tax or whatever, but anytime you tax like the value of property or whatever, and so that's why like if you go buy milk, you don't pay tax, but if you go buy candy bars, you do. Because we think, well, everybody should be able to buy milk, and so we're going to cut them a break, and we are not going to tax the poor as much because everybody needs milk. But if you're going to buy luxuries, then we're going to tax you more. So you'll hear politicians propose things like, have you ever heard of a national sales tax or a value-added tax? Get rid of the income tax, get rid of the IRS, let's just streamline this process. Just know that anytime you tax the value of an item, it's going to end up being regressive, and it's going to hurt the people who make less money more. But people that are wealthier do tend to consume more. You know what I mean? Like I think about like my clothes budget is significantly larger at my 40s when I'm married to someone and we both have jobs versus it was when I was in college and didn't have any money. You know what I mean? So I do consume more, but it's not like a hard fast rule either. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so that's where we get our money. Now let's talk about how we spend our money. So, in terms of categories of spending, the largest category of spending that we have is Social Security. We spend more money on Social Security than anything else, and we're going to get to that later. But Social Security would be an example of something you have to spend money on. It's mandatory. If somebody has worked, their met their criteria in terms of work and has met their criteria in terms of age, they are guaranteed a Social Security check. So if we have a really bad economic year or taxes go down or there's lots of unemployment, we can't suddenly say, we don't have the money anymore. You still have to pay it. Medicare and Medicaid goes there as well. That's the second largest part of our budget. If people attain the age of eligibility and they meet the criteria, they're guaranteed Medicare. If people are in poverty and they meet the criterion, they're guaranteed Medicaid. So again, that's something you have to spend your money on. And if I'm reading the blurry numbers correctly, we're at like 58%. Military spending accounted for about 18%. Military spending is not all mandatory. Some of it's discretionary. So, I mean, do the differences make sense? Like, I don't have to define those, right? Okay. So discretionary, but some of it's mandatory, but a lot of it's discretionary. Interest on the debt. I bet Mr. Harklaw talked about the debt, right? A little bit? What? You did? Do you remember how much it was?
Oh yeah, it was like going up like every second it was going up like
Mhm.
a couple $100,000.
Okay. So anytime that you have debt, you have interest on your debt, right? So if you personally accrue debt for college or you buy a car or you do something, you'll pay that money back, but you're going to have interest that you have to pay on that as well. Well, the American government's like that as well. So our $14 trillion in debt, even if we stop deficit spending and we just maintain that, we still have to pay the interest on it. So $7 out of every $100 that we spend goes to pay that interest. So basically it goes to pay for our previous spending. That's mandatory. If you don't pay the interest on your debt, they come take your car away. You know, like you lose it. So if we don't pay the interest